Hi, I'm Audrey, a 30-year-old mom to two amazing kids. Life has been pretty good overall, but recently, my marriage has hit a rocky patch, mainly because of my husband's relationship with his mother. You see, my husband, Luca, is what some would call a mama's boy, and while I respect his love for her, there are moments when it feels like she's too involved in our lives. One of those moments came a few months ago, sparking an argument that changed everything. It all started one evening when Luca called me over. "Hey, Audrey, can we talk for a second?" "Sure," I said, sitting down, a little concerned. "What's up?" "I've been thinking," he began, hesitating. "We need to cut back on some household expenses." "Is something wrong at work?" I asked, worried. No, work's fine," he reassured me, "but I want to allocate some money for something important." Curious, I pressed for details. "What's this new expense?" After taking a deep breath, he said, "I want to start giving Mom $4,000 a month. She's getting older and could use the extra support." I was stunned. $4,000 a month? That's nearly $50,000 a year, for someone who, as far as I knew, didn't even need it. My mother-in-law, Evie, owned a successful business and lived comfortably. It didn't make sense. "Luca, why does she need that kind of money? She's financially stable," I protested. "She's my mom, Audrey," he replied, visibly frustrated. "She did so much for me growing up. This is the least I can do." Our argument escalated, and that night, we slept in separate rooms. Though we were financially secure, I couldn't justify giving away such a large sum every month, especially when it could go toward our kids' futures or helping people in real need. Luca, however, refused to budge, and within a week, he started sending the money. Months passed, and the tension between us lingered. To make matters worse, Luca insisted I be the one to transfer the money to Evie every month, almost as if he wanted to remind me who came first in his life. Still, I reluctantly complied. 3 months later, Evie visited us for tea, and during our conversation, she casually brought up the allowance. "Luca's been so generous," she said, smiling. "He just knew I needed help without me even asking. Business hasn't been as great lately, but I didn't want to burden anyone." Her words tugged at my heart. I felt guilty for doubting her and even more ashamed for arguing with Luca. But then, as our chat continued, something didn't sit right. Evie started mentioning plans for luxury vacations and expensive hobbies she wanted to pick up. When I asked if things were looking up for her financially, she quickly backtracked, claiming she meant someday, when the business rebounds. It felt off, but I let it go. 2 more months passed, and we were feeling the financial strain. Cutting back wasn't easy, but I tried to make it work. Then one evening, while tidying Luca's office, I stumbled upon a text from Evie that stopped me cold. "Hey, Luca, could you increase my monthly allowance? I'd love to indulge in a few extra luxuries." I couldn't believe it. Luxuries? This wasn't about basic needs, it was indulgence. My sympathy evaporated. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to dig deeper. The next day, I invited Evie over for tea. As we chatted, she excused herself to use the bathroom. Seizing the opportunity, I rummaged through her purse and found her phone. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. I opened her banking app, and what I discovered confirmed my suspicions. Evie wasn't struggling, she was thriving. The allowance she'd been receiving from Luca wasn't being used for necessities. It was padding her already substantial savings. Women's intuition is rarely wrong, and in this case, it led me straight to the shocking truth. I decided to dig into her financial records, expecting to uncover evidence of her financial struggles. What I found instead left me utterly stunned. Evie had over $1.6 million sitting in her bank account as of 6 months ago. I couldn't believe my eyes. I double-checked the app, exited, and reopened it, hoping I was mistaken, but the numbers were there, staring back at me, proof that she was far from struggling. My shock deepened when I noticed a recent text message on her phone from one of her employees. It read, "Hi Evie, I've attached the financial breakdown for last month. Great news, we've made a substantial profit for the 4th consecutive month. You're an amazing businesswoman, looking forward to your thoughts." Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the attachment. My jaw dropped as I skimmed the report. Her business had earned a profit of $8,400 last month alone. That kind of success was remarkable. Her company was thriving, and she was pocketing more than enough to live comfortably. As I sat there, My initial disbelief turned into anger. Evie was taking money from her son, money meant to support her grandchildren, not out of necessity, but purely to fund her own indulgences. Hearing her footsteps approaching, I quickly erased all traces of my snooping, locked her phone, and returned it to her bag just as she entered the room. "Thank you for the tea, Audrey," she said with her usual sweet smile. "You have no idea how much I appreciate your kindness. It's so hard to get by these days, especially at my age. I've been meaning to ask, would it be possible to increase my monthly allowance to $6,000? Things are still so tight." Her words made my blood boil, but I kept my cool. "I understand how difficult things must be for you," I replied with a forced smile. "It's not like you're a millionaire or anything." Her expression faltered for just a second, but it was enough to confirm everything I'd uncovered. She quickly recovered, her voice soft and sweet as ever. "Oh no, of course not. If I were, I wouldn't need to ask for help. So, what do you think about the extra $2,000? "I'm afraid that's not possible right now," I said firmly. Her smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of irritation. She pressed her lips together and nodded stiffly. "Of course, no problem at all. Well, I must be going. Thank you again for the tea." She left quickly, her cheery facade cracking under the weight of rejection. I sat in silence, my sympathy for her completely gone. I debated whether to tell Luca about what I had discovered, but decided he needed to learn the truth on his own. He had dismissed my concerns too many times, and now it was time for him to see who his mother really was. A few days later, it was time to send her monthly $4,000 allowance, but this time, I didn't. I wanted her to feel the sting of unmet expectations. It wasn't long before Luca confronted me. "What's going on, Audrey? Why hasn't Mom received the money yet?" he asked, his tone sharp. "I had my reasons," I replied calmly. "I think you should hear me out." He cut me off, his voice rising. "You don't earn a penny in this house, so you don't get a say in where the money goes. It's my money, and I decide how to spend it. All you need to do is send the allowance, just like I asked. You're just a housewife, remember that." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had sacrificed so much for our family, and this was how he valued me? Anger erupted from within me. "You don't appreciate me, Luca. You think being a mother and homemaker is easy, but let's see how well you manage without me. Before I go, though, check your mother's bank account. You might want to rethink everything you just said." "Audrey, wait," he started, but I had already hung up. I sent him screenshots of Evie's bank records and the financial report I had found, then put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Without another word, I packed up some essentials for me and the kids and checked us into a nearby hotel. To avoid worrying the children, I told them the house was being fumigated and that Daddy would stay elsewhere to make sure everything was safe. It was time for Luca to face reality, alone. I couldn't bring myself to burden my little ones with the harsh realities unfolding around us. They were my source of strength, and I needed to be strong for them. With my phone still set to Do Not Disturb, messages from Luca and my mother-in-law flooded in, but I ignored them. Instead, I focused on enjoying the evening with my children, playing games and relishing their laughter. It was a balm for my weary heart. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a call. "Hello, Miss Audrey. This is the hotel reception. There's a gentleman named Luca here who says he's your husband. May we confirm that you know him?" "Yes, he's my husband. Please let him know my room number." Moments later, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, Luca immediately pulled me into a tight embrace, his shoulders shaking as he cried. "I'm so sorry, Audrey," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You were right. I saw everything you sent me, and I can't believe how blind I've been. I should have trusted you from the start." His apology felt genuine, and though my heart ached, I comforted him and invited him inside. We sat down, and he began to explain. "I should have realized sooner. I've let my mother control me for so long, and it's cost me so much. I'm sorry for putting you through this. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll do everything I can to make it up to you." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. It was his mother. We both knew this was a confrontation that couldn't be avoided any longer. I nodded, and he answered on speaker. "How dare you invade my privacy, Audrey?" Evie's voice screeched through the phone. "I could press charges, you know." "And Luca, honey, you're not seriously going to let her get away with this, are you? I'm your mother. I deserve better than this betrayal." "Mom," Luca interjected, his voice steady, "stop pretending. I've seen the bank records, the profits from your business, all of it. You don't need the money. You've been lying to us." Evie scoffed. So what if I have money? You're my son. You're supposed to take care of me, no matter what. I've earned the right to a little indulgence. Besides, controlling you keeps you grounded. You need to remember that mommy comes first. The venom in her tone stunned me. It was as if a mask had slipped, revealing a side of her I hoped I'd never see. Mom, Lucas said, his voice breaking, how could you? You've put my family through so much pain. Audrey and I argued because of you. You manipulated me. And for what? Your ego? Your greed? I can't believe I let you do this. Evie's tone turned icy. Oh, please, you and Audrey were bound to fail anyway. She's just a housewife, a placeholder. Once she's gone, you and the kids will come back to me where you belong. And as for those kids, well, they're not my problem. Enough, Lucas shouted, his voice firm and resolute. I've heard all I need to. I can't believe you'd stoop this low. You've hurt me, my wife, and my children. And for what? Your selfish games? This ends now. Luca, sweetheart, I didn't mean it. Evie backtracked, her voice desperate. Don't let her poison you against me. I'm your mother. No, Mom, he replied, his voice calm but resolute. You've done that yourself. Don't call me again. And with that, he ended the call. For a moment, Luca sat in silence, his shoulders slumping as the weight of years of manipulation lifted. I reached out, placing a hand on his. He looked up at me, tears brimming in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Audrey, he whispered, for everything. You've been the glue holding our family together, and I took you for granted. I'll never make that mistake again. He spent the rest of the day apologizing to me and our children. He acknowledged how distant he'd been and vowed to change. His sincerity was evident, and while the hurt couldn't vanish overnight, I saw a man determined to be better. As for Edie, her calls continued for days, but Luca ignored every one. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and now she was facing the consequences of her actions. Our family wasn't perfect, but together, we were finally on the path to healing.